Hello everyone. The course name is Banking Regulation and Operations. The unit is Paying Banker and Collecting Banker. And the topic that I'll be covering in this presentation will be the statutory protection available to a paying banker. Yes, coming to the various statutory protection which is available for a paying banker. So there are basically five protections which are available for a paying banker under the various sections of the Negotiable Instrument Act. The first one is protection regarding the check. So the section 185 subsection 1 of the Negotiable Instrument Act gives the paying banker protection regarding the check. So it states that in case the payment is made to a wrong person whose signature is not according to the specimen signature, the protection is given to a banker under section 16 subsection 2 of the Negotiable Instruments Act. Okay, because it is we are in the consideration that it is not possible for a banker to know each of the endorsers and their signatures. For getting the protection, the banker should note the following two things. First one is the case of regular endorsement, and the second one is in payment and due course. So, in simple terms, protection regarding the check states that if it is a third party or someone coming with a open check or bearer check, and he is endorsing and giving the check to the bank for payment, and the bank finds that the check is in proper form and know everything, so it is not possible for a bank to check the signatures of all the endorsees. So in that case, if the check is in proper form, obviously the bank can make the payment uh, in the case of fulfillment of the two conditions, which is in the case of regular endorsement, and second one is the case of payment in due course. So the first case is that of a regular endorsement. So you can see the definition here. Regular endorsement says, according to section 85 subsection 1 of the Negotiable Instrument Act, the endorsement should be regular. For example, if a check is payable to a right person and the signature is bearing same name and the same spelling, this is a regular endorsement, though this is not a valid endorsement. For instance, if a check is payable to someone called Rajesh, okay, so there will be n number of Rajesh in our country. So if I'm seeing the check and as a banker, I'm accepting this check considering that the person is the same person because his name, the person who is coming up with the check is also having the same name of Rajesh and the spelling is also correct. And when he's endorsee, the signature also does not create any kind of confusion in the minds of the paying banker. And if the banker is making a payment in that condition, obviously it will be considered as a regular endorsement. It might be a different Rajesh, so it does not make it a valid endorsement legally, but it will be a regular endorsement. So this is the first case where the paying banker gets a statutory protection if the payment is made in a regular endorsement. The second one is a case of payment in due course. So the section 10 of the Negotiable Instrument Act defines payment in due course as payment in accordance with the apparent tenor of the instrument in good faith and without negligence to any person in possession thereof under circumstances which do not afford a reasonable ground for believing that he is not entitled to receive payment of amount mentioned therein. So in simple terms, if I define what is payment in due course, uh, suppose if a customer called A is coming to a bank with a check, okay, it is a bearer check, and he is coming to the bank with the bearer check. So the bank should see if the check is in proper form, that is the date is there, the amount in words and words and figures do match, the payee name is mentioned correctly, it is a bearer check, it is properly endorsed, the signature of the customer does not mismatch. If all these things are taken care of, it means the check is in proper form. And if it's a bearer check, obviously the endorsement cannot be verified. Like bank cannot see if the signatures of all the endorsees are in proper place. If the name is satisfied, then obviously the bank can make the payment. So if all these things are considered properly and then the bank is making a payment for on behalf of a debtor who does not have a defective title, then such payments are considered to be payment in due course. So these are the requisites for making a payment as payment in due course. Okay, first one, the payment must be made at or after the date of maturity. So if there is a date which is mentioned in the check, either the payment should be made on that particular date or after that date, like within 3 months, but after the date of issue. The second requisite says that the payment must be made to the holder. So if it's a bearer check, anyone who is coming with the check, he should be given the payment no in that case, obviously, it is not possible for the bank to check if it's a thief who has stolen the check or come in for the withdrawal of the amount or something like that. So if it's a holder instrument, if it's open check, obviously it should be given to the holder. But if it's a cross check, it should be given only to the account of that particular person. So that is the second requisite. Third requisite, payment must be made to the debtor in good faith and without notice that his title is defective. So there is a drawer who signs the check. So the bank should be very much confident that the title of that person is in good faith. That means he does not have any criminal background, or any case is not happening in his name, or there is not a garnishee order which is issued in his account. So all these things are taken care of, and the banker is very sure of the fact that the debtor is in good faith and without having a defective title, and then the bank is making a payment against that instrument, then that becomes a payment in due course. So these are the requisites for payment to be considered as a payment in due course. Yes, coming to the second protection, which is the protection in case of bearer check. So section 85, subsection 2 of the Negotiable Instrument Acts gives the paying banker statutory protection in terms of a bearer check. So in case a bearer check is stolen or lost and the banker honors the check without any knowledge, the banker will be discharged from his duty under the protection given in section 85, subsection 2 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay. In such a case, the paying banker is not required to verify the endorsement on bearer check. In case a bearer check is crossed, the paying banker has no right to pay it across the counter in disregard of the crossing. So this is what the protection of bearer check says. If it is a bearer check, obviously the endorsement is proper and check is in proper form, the banker can always make the payment, and he will not be responsible if the person who has come with the bearer check is a thief or someone else, right? But if it's a cross check, the payment should go only to the account of the particular person. Coming to the third statutory protection, which is the protection in case of cross check. So it is provided by section 128 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. So regarding the payment of cross check, the paying banker gets the protection under section 128 of the NI Act of 1881. So in case the payment is made on the instructions of the drawer in good faith without any negligence, the paying banker gets this statutory protection under the NI Act of 1881. So even if it is a cross check and the check is in proper form and the paying banker is making the payment according to the terms of the check and to the right person, or the person whom the banker considers the right person due to some proper reasons, then obviously he gets a no statutory protection under section 128 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Coming to the next case, which is the protection in case of obliterated check. So obliterated, the word meaning is wiping off. Okay, so wiping out is like you are removing all the proof of something which existed, right? So payment of an instrument on alteration is not apparent, right? This is one case where instrument is brought in. It can be a check, it can be a promissory note, it can be a bill of exchange, and there is an alteration which happened, but there is no alteration which is apparent or visible. Okay, and suppose if it is a check which is presented for payment, and at the time of presentation it might be a cross check, but there is no reason for the banker to believe that at some point of time the check was a cross check. A simple example can be like the customer has crossed the check using a pencil. Okay, someone who is coming with the check has erased the pencil mark completely, and the banker does not have a valid reason to believe that the check was a cross check. And in that case, if the banker is making a payment, okay, it becomes a case of obliterated check, where the banker does not have any good reason to believe that the check was altered, right? Because the alteration was not apparent. In that case, the banker gets a protection under the Negotiable Instrument Act, the paying banker, right? And the last case is the protection in case of draft. So the protection in case of draft, the statutory protection for the paying banker is available under section 85A of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, so it states that for a sum of money payable to order on demand, which is endorsed by or on behalf of the payee, the bank is discharged by payment in due course, right? So if the banker is making a payment in due course for any draft which was drawn by one branch of the bank on another branch, obviously the payment is made in due course, then the statutory protection will be available to the paying banker under section 85A. So these are the various statutory protection which are available for the paying banker in India under the Negotiable Instrument Act of 1881. Thank you so much.